Hello and welcome to the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. You can also find the Greater STL Sports Network. Just search Greater STL Sports Network. And we are also live right now on Ustream, doing our first live video broadcast. The audio will also be up on YouTube. And did you miss me? Did you expect to see my face today? But anyways, we're going to get to some Rams talk. Talk a lot about the stadium, a lot about Nick Foles. And we'll just do pretty much a potpourri after that. Talk all the Smith stuff. Talk some UFC stuff. Talk a little bit about the Football Hall of Fame. But of course, we're going to start off with the St. Louis Cardinals. They're coming down the stretch, and you wouldn't expect a team that's right there at 30 games over 500 to only be 5 games up in a division. And that's where the Cardinals are at right now. Pirates and Cubs both riding their tails. And they just went out there and swept the two best teams in the NL West with the LA Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. But if the Cardinals, it's just something that's going on in this pitching staff, and it's just not understanding. And we seem to used to give a lot of credit to Dave Duncan and Tony La Russa, guys like that, for the pitching staff and things like that. But for some reason, we're not doing that anymore. We're giving it straight to the pitchers. But over these stats over the last, and I had 15 games, but I had a lucky start the other day to make it 16 games. But over the last 16 starts, 101 out of a possible 144 innings for the starters, only 27 earned runs, 79 hits, ERA of 2.40, only 37 walks, 85 Ks, and a whip of 1.4. I mean, that's from 5 different pitchers going and 3 different starts, Lackey with 4 starts in there. So the Cardinals are coming to a place where first they got to get to the Pirates, who they play tonight, and then play a 3-game series against. But then you're getting to the point to where you gotta pick and choose who you want to make this go down the stretch and be your 3 or 4 starters in the postseason. Who do you take out? Your best ERA guy right now is Jaime Garcia, who I've already told you, and he's already told you plenty of times, basically he wants to be a starter, and they've told you he's not equipped for being in the bullpen. And there's still 50 games to go left in the season, so for at least him, that's at least 7-8 more starts to see where he's at. But do you want to say the innings with Waka, maybe throw him down there and not really use him? Or do you take a guy like Martinez, who's on pace for under 200 innings at 197, and the Cardinals have been playing a little bit of babying with him, 5 inning starts. But, I mean, that's what you got to do because it's what's worked. It's proven that shutting them all the way down doesn't help your team in the long run. So at least sending guys out there to give them the start, give them the idea that they're going to go, but holding the reins back still. But does a guy like Martinez get to the bullpen? Because he's a guy that's done it and been effective in the bullpen. Even though he's been much more effective as a starter, he's the guy you're going to trust down there. The other guy you would trust is Lynn, but you're not going to take him out of the spots he's been in. I mean, he's been dominant over the last 3 starts. He had 1 bad start, but then 7, and the start before that, 1 run, 6 no-run runs. I mean, it's crazy to see what's going on this season for the Cardinals. And we're looking a lot past this offense, too, with the over 100 run differential. But you're going to have 4, 5, maybe even 6 guys that hit 15 home runs in this lineup for you. And I think one of them's adding Reynolds and Adams together. They already have 13 together. But you got a guy like Carp that already has 16. Wong, 15. Peralta, 16. Hayward, 9. Grichuk, 14. But they're not just doing it with the home runs, doubles, extra base hits, 29 doubles for Carp. Wong with 20. Peralta with 21. Hayward, 23. Grichuk with 20. Molina has 19. If you combined Reynolds and Adams, they have 20 doubles. I mean, I know the big things, runners in scoring position and all that crap, but that's how you produce runs with extra base hits. And that's the top players in your lineup right now, with Holiday being out, that are doing this producing. Also, you throw Piscotty in there, and you've seen this Matheny thing with messing around the lineup, putting Grichuk eighth, putting Piscotty second, kind of moving everybody all around to kind of benefit the young guys. And also try to see where you put a guy like Hayward. Where's his best spot in the lineup? Because you haven't figured that out yet. He's embedded in every spot in the batting order. What's his best spot? You probably know with his power that Grichuk needs to be right there in the 5th or 6th spot. But is that more for a guy that you're used to driving in runs like Molina? Or is that for a guy like Hayward? Maybe he starts turning it around. So even though it looks like there's a lot of holes in these lineup compared to what I said in the pitching, there's really not. You just have to find them and put them in the right spots. You already proved in the last 10 games for Carpenter, moving him back to the leadoff spot was the best thing you could have done. 375, 432 slug on OPS of over 1,000. 7 home runs and 5 doubles and 12 RBIs. That's his spot in the lineup. He's comfortable there. Leave that alone. Now you got to pick your poison with your second spot. Because Carpenter does strike out a lot, but then you got a guy like Grichuk who does strike out a lot. Or Wong who doesn't strike out as much, but still is a high strikeout guy. And maybe with the speed of a guy like Carpenter, who's not the fastest guy in the world, maybe you go with the Wong to put the speed behind him that stops double plays, but Grichuk ain't the slowest guy either. But you got to kind of pick your poison in that situation as who you want to put where. And that's been the hard thing for Mike Matheny. I kind of wanted to harp on him about moving the lineup so much, but he's in a situation that moving guys around has worked at certain times, but has also been a disadvantage at certain times. I mean, Wong was hitting pretty good in the first spot when Carpenter was batting second, but it just some reason threw Carpenter out of rhythm, so you have to put Carp back where you got to go. Now you got to find Wong's spot. And with his power, and also with his better on-base percentage and Grichuk and getting in there, I think you might have to put him second and put Grichuk lower to produce runs in this lineup. You more need the guys on base to produce the runs than the guys just up there because they have the high upside. They have the power and the ability to hit the doubles and triples. But Wong has that power too. Maybe not as much as Grichuk, but just as pretty close. And you've seen it. And speed at the top of the lineup is something we're kind of missing and been missing for a long time for the Cardinals. I mean, who's the fastest guy you could think of at the top of that lineup in a long time? I mean, Tony Womack in 04, 05? When you had guys up there like David Eckstein and Skip Schumacher, who just aren't the fastest guys in the world, even though they're good hitters. John Jay's been up there also. Another guy that's in there. They're good hitters. They're guys that get on base. But there's not speed at the top of that lineup. And Wong is a guy that could provide that, even if it is from the second spot. And then so if you come to a situation where you hit in a double play situation, Carpenter's out at second, you can get Wong to first, and then maybe he gets himself in the scoring position with speed, and then you guys got guys to follow like Peralta, Hayward, and Grichuk. And when Holiday comes back. And they've even been talking about Adams has been swinging. A guy like Molina. And that's another hole in this lineup that you you don't want to really put Molina down the A spot just because you know what he can do and what he has done in the past. But he hasn't produced this season to warrant him some of the positions he's been in the lineup. But also with guys like Moss and Reynolds in there, them are guys you could easily put eighth, but hard to bunt over. And that's why you've seen guys like Grichuk and Piscotty down there, because when they do get on base ahead of that pitcher, the one thing you need them to do is get to second base on a bunt. And guys like Reynolds and Moss and Molina can't do that. That's why they're not in the spots, and it's hard to put them in that situation. And then even more with Molina, because what he's done in the past and when he's met to this team, not only defensively but offensively. I mean, he's had 20 home run seasons, 300 batting average, high RBI totals for a guy that's known for his defense. And you don't expect him to do that, but he's still having a 275 year. It's not like his production has been so low that you have to put him in the eighth spot, and that's part of the problem. And Matheny's just such a player guy. That's just what he is. And you've heard it. He puts guys in situations in the bullpen because incentives and saves come with money, and guys want their money, and he wants to get it for them. He understands that. He's not a guy that made the millions and millions of dollars because he wasn't the best offensive player. He was more known for his defense. So he kind of understands it in a way for some of these young guys like Rosenthal and Maness and Choate to go out there and get these appearances and get these saves and get this extra money that they wouldn't have otherwise. And it's not like he's always put the bullpen in a bad spot. It's just you had nobody else to go to at the time. Seth Maness is a guy that can come in and get ground ball outs for you and get left-handers and right-handers out. So you have to use them. Seagrass is the same way. If Choate could get out right-handers, you would use Choate. But he can't do it. He's had trouble getting out left-handers at some parts this season. So that's why when we went to the trade deadline, like when I brought up Moss, you added guys like Bryson and C-Check. Yes, I can't say his name all of a sudden. But Steve Cishek to add stability and takes the load off some of them guys. Because you weren't going to rely on Sam Tuliolava. You weren't going to rely on Miguel Sokolovich. And there's really nobody else. The guy that was pitching very, very well for you that was down there was Mitch Harrison. He's hurt. They haven't really put all the trust in Marcus Hadley yet, which I don't understand. Why not give him a chance, definitely with his age? And the other guys that you could use are left-handed starters. And your backups for Jaime Garcia and Tyler Lyons and Tim Cooney. Even though Tyler's up here right now, just the case for a backup, because he had a 13-inning game a while back. And that I should have brought that up with the pitching with the 36-inning scoreless streak from that game. But you brought him up to help stabilize the bullpen too, and probably sneak him in for a spot start somewhere to save a Jaime Garcia, to save the innings that you put on Carlos Martinez and Michael Wacha, and maybe even give the extra day's rest to a John Lackey and a Lance Lynn. And the Cardinals have done this to perfection since Mike Matheny has been here. But also since he's been here, he's overused the bullpen. But he's putting what he has out there in the situations where he knows he's their best. And that's what people aren't understanding. A guy like Sam Tuliolava, even though he's got down there closing to AAA, do you really want him out there throwing in the 8th inning? You've lost your 8th inning guy. You've lost what was your 7th inning guy, and Belial, kind of your backup really 7th inning guy with Seagrass and Maness down there. So you've lost all your depth from the players that you trust. And you can't just throw every little player out there and expect them to be great. It's worked at almost every situation for the Cardinals have put every player in. But you can't expect it to work for every single player. I mean, Sokolowicz is a cast off from the Cubs. He couldn't get it done before. That's why he's here. And I think that's why he gets on the lineup or gets called up on the most times, because he's a guy that has had some major league experience. And a lot of people are harping on Broxton for giving up the home run Sunday. But you had, or about with he put him into that situation, really, but you had no other choice with the guys you had out there. Broxton's a former closer. Why would you not trust him in that situation? And he's been great since he's been in St. Louis. He was shaky with Kansas City, but he's been great since he's been here. So why not put him in? Why not use him when you need a player to get out at certain times? And if they want to harp on it, you could have put anybody else in and blah, blah, blah. No. That's how things roll. He's not your 8th inning guy till you get Jordan Walton back. And maybe even if he pitches effectively like he did when he first got here, he's the 8th inning guy from here on out. Now you got your 7th inning guy when Walton's back. Also, September's coming around. September call-ups are going to give this team a lot of relief. And that's what people haven't understand about the Cardinals, is everything's been about the future. Everything is not going to be about what happens in this game right here, right now. It just hasn't been that way. And that's what happens to have the success that they had. There's not teams that go out there and get a bunch of players that have long runs. It just doesn't happen. Those Yankees were the only team in the 2000s when they got all the steroid users they could to do that. But you don't have that anymore. So you don't have that kind of an advantage. So you have to do it in the other ways. And that's what the Cardinals have done. That's why you don't see Pujols on this team. That's why you don't see them going to make the big crazy trades that some of these teams make. You don't see the big signings of just guys that don't deserve the money that they're getting. I mean, if you look at the Reds with Homer Bailey, and even though Votto's a good player, but just contracts like that just devastate a team, and the Cardinals don't have any of them, and haven't had any of them in a really long time, even when Lewis was here. People want to harp on the Holiday contract, but $17 million isn't really hurting major league teams. And what's your next one after that? Right, making, I think it was right around 20 or 17.5 if something like that. Some just considerably low compared to what other guys are getting out here. When he's proved through and through again, he's the best pitcher in the game. So everybody looks at every single situation like this is going to affect the whole season, and it's just not. That's not how it's going to go. You got to look. I mean, that September call-up thing is really a relief for the bullpen. You just bring every pitcher up from AAA. They're not doing that well this year, and just let them go out there and just throw as many bullpen innings as you can. I mean, that's kind of what. That's not the best way to go, but that's kind of what is going to happen, probably. Then you got them guys that take the long release innings also. You got them guys that pitch in these 13-inning games, where you're not relying on Villanueva, who's a ghost at times. It doesn't make quite any sense, but maybe there's some the Cardinals have on him. Maybe the long relief thing has improved. Ought to be effective for him, and they've seen that if you put him in spurts like this, he's a better pitcher. So we're always discounting something that seems to turn around in the end. I mean, for you say any NLCS, any team in the world would beg for that. And we're mad they're not winning the World Series. I mean, we've won 11 since 1898 or whatever, since they've been the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, what do you expect? But as Cardinals fans, we got to have 25 like the Yankees, or I think they have 24, so we have 25 more. So we can be better than everybody else because we're the best team ever. That just doesn't happen that way. If it happened that way, then everybody would live in St. Louis and just come here and watch the Cardinals. So to expect things just to be good all the time, it's not a smart way to go about it. Because the Cardinals have done more over the last 3 years with Matheny as manager to live up to the expectations than any team in baseball. Postseason's a whole different animal. You expect your team to get to the postseason after that. It's pretty much fair game of whoever gets it. And we've done it every year that he's been here and made it to where we've had a chance to be or win the World Series. I don't know what else you could want more from these players or that guy. But this series with the Pirates is a big series to see where you're at against a team that's been just hot lately. And you have 9 more games against them in the last 50 games. There's 2 more series after this one. So you're kind of hoping the Cardinals kind of put your foot down, which they've had with these NL Central teams. And kind of when they've built themselves up and they come against the Cardinals, we kind of put them back down. I don't want to say show them we're the Cardinals, but kind of put them back down and say, hey, not yet. But these teams are ready to take over. The Cubs, the people weren't expecting this. There were some people that were going a little overboard. But they're right in the hunt. And then you got Pittsburgh, who has the pitching and has a little more effective offense than the Cardinals, even though they just lost their shortstop. Ryan Heels too. But you look at the pitching, and it's kind of favorable in this series for you with your 2 young guys going in behind me. So we'll see where the Cardinals are at against the bigger, better teams than the Rockies and the Brewers and what they've been playing on lately into this week. But I kind of wanted to touch on this Rookie of the Year thing, and I didn't really look up the pitchers, which are always probably at the top of everybody's list for winning any kind of award, MVP, any of that. Definitely when you have years like Clay Kershaw had. But I kind of looked up the stats for these race between Randall Grichuk, Chris Bryant, and Jock Peterson. And if you compare this off the at-bats, Randall Grichuk has 101 less than Jock Peterson and 98 less than Chris Bryant. But his stats are clearly better other than in one department with Peterson home runs and then one department with Chris Bryant, that's RBIs. But Peterson's batting .224, and he's been their leadoff hitter. They were sticking with him as a leadoff hitter for a while. Now they've actually put him in the 8th batting spot just like Grichuk was. And Chris Bryant's always been batting second the whole time in the Cubs lineup, and he's been struggling. And we'll go to last 32, but .224, 21 home runs, 43 RBIs, same as Grichuk. Only 2 stolen bases, OPS 806. He has 130 strikeouts, 67 walks, slugging .451. 18 doubles, 1 triple, and his K percentage, which is how many times he struck out in his 360%, just divided up, is 35.5. Bryant, 248, 15 home runs, 64 RBIs, 58 walks, 132 Ks. He actually has 11 stolen bases, on bases percentage of 358, slugging 441, only OPS of only 799. His K percentage is 36.3. He has 14 doubles, or 17 doubles, 4 triples. Now here's get the Grichuk stats. And the less at bats, 265, Bryant 363, and Jock Peterson 366. 287 average, 14 home runs, 43 RBIs, Now the walks are a little low too, 16 compared to 67 and 58. 89 strikeouts, which is right on pace with them with the less at-bats. 4 stolen bases. On base of 333. Slugging, 574, which is over 100 more than both of them. OPS of 907. 20 doubles, 7 triples, so more than both. And then only K percentage of 33.5. Now if you actually look at it some more than that, his slugging percentage of 574 qualified would only be second to Harper's. And then he would also lead the league in extra base hits per at bat at 605. Now what I wanted to get in this is I looked at the last 30, and this is where Peterson and Bryant have been falling off, and Grichuk's kind of risen up. For Peterson, 109 at bats, 183 average, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 12 walks, 37 Ks. Slugging 266, on base percentage of 282. So not good for him over the last 30. And probably why they finally moved him down to the A spot. Now you go to Bryant, 104 at bats. He got an average of 173. He's had 3 home runs, 15 RBIs, 17 walks, 40 Ks. Slugging 327 with an on base percentage of 302. And now this is where you get Randal Grichuk in the same amount of bats as Peterson. Chris Bryant has 5 less. And this is where he's kind of risen up over them, I think, in this Rookie of the Year race. 312 over the last 30 with 109 at bats. 7 home runs, 22 RBIs. So actually, if you look at it, he's got more than both of them combined. More home runs, 7-4. 8 walks, which is right on pace for where he's been at, but still less than him. But his strikeouts have gone down in this last 30. Only 20 strikeouts. His on-base percentage is 370. Slugging, 615. So slugging twice as more as Chris Bryant and almost 3 times as more as Jock Peterson. And then also, if you look at his defense, and that's something that they don't always put in consideration anymore with all these stats that are going on, is he's playing a center field, a prime position for any team. And even though he has a couple blunders here and there for a position he hasn't played the whole time in this system, but in any system since he's been drafted by the Angels, you just don't hear that much about him. Not as much as you heard about Jay, definitely, and you see the diving catches and stuff, but then you hear about Chris Bryant with his play at third, that they're talking about moving him to left field, and I think he played left field in the All-Star game. And then Jock Peterson, you really don't hear much about his defense, but you heard the batting average and stuff, which is just considerably lower than Randal Grichuk's. Then I was looking at another stat, which was groundouts to flyouts, and Grichuk was one of the tops in the league at hitting more groundouts. And I was even thinking about it when they was reading the stat that I remember him grounding out in between the shortstop and third baseman the other day and rolling all the way to the wall, and he got a double out of it. So as you see Randal Grichuk start to hit a stride here, do you think he has taken over that Rookie of the Year? So I kind of think he should if you look at the stats that I just gave to you. And then also playing the position he does, center field. And then also having to be one of the constants in a lineup that you have guys lost like Matt Halliday and Matt Adams. And the guys that's struggling at this time, and Mark Reynolds, or guys that were struggling before, and Matt Carpenter. Or a guy that hasn't produced as much as he used to as Johnny Berlina. There's a lot of differences in some of the lineups that they got in LA. Adrian Gonzalez, one of the constants in that lineup. Also, guys like Jimmy Rollins and Holly Kendrick, guys that are good Major League Baseball players. And then the Cubs, even though they're not more known, but guys like Anthony Rizzo. You also guys like hitting like Devin Mesoraco, who's a better hitter than most people think. He just can't play a whole lot of catcher. I said Tevin Mezzarana. Miguel Montero. I mean, they've got their lineup to where they're Sterling Castro sitting on the bench. And now they're playing another shortstop with the shortstop in waiting. You don't see that for most teams. To have shortstops in waiting. We know our shortstops waiting is Pete Cosmo and Greg Garcia. Even though Greg hasn't got the chance, we haven't really seen him, so I'm not going to down him as much. But our backup shortstop is a guy that can't do anything. He's a better defensive player at times, which is a bigger thing, but if you put him out there, you're expecting 0 for 4 from him no matter what the situation is. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk about the Rams stadium situation next, right here on the Sports Blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. And you can also find us on Facebook at the Greater STL, one word, Sports Network. And also we're now live streaming on Ustream.tv under what my Twitter handle is, rbowlesbyjr. And then you can still find us on YouTube as Greater STL's one word, then Space Network. But with the owner meetings going on in Chicago over this LA situation, I kind of want to touch on that note too, as we kind of jumped some hurdles and some things that might have been some of the last blows of the Ram getting out of here, which was a city vote where Judge Thomas Frawley ruled that the city does not need voter approval before spending tax dollars on a new riverfront stadium. He declared the stadium ordinance requiring the public vote invalid, calling sections too vague to be enforced. In his ruling, the judge said there were uncertainties, and the sum makes a task for what is best could be guesswork. Moreover, Frawley ruled the placement of the new stadium along the riverfront just north of downtown does not break state law requiring that the building be adjacent to the convention center. He said it was close enough. Adjacent, Frawley wrote, has commonly been interpreted by Missouri courts to be near or close at hand, not necessarily touching each other. Proponents quietly celebrated the victory. Dave Peacock, leader of Governance Task Force, who's not at these owner meetings in Chicago, which they kind of already made their stick, and this is what we want, and this is how we're going to do it, and they keep promoting the same thing, so what else is there to give them? Maybe he praised the legal team as extraordinary, called for everyone in St. Louis region to rally behind the stadium effort. The court's ruling and victory for a bold and promising future for the NFL in St. Louis and continued rebirth of our downtown area, Peacock said in a statement. So we got past that no-sense situation of people saying, oh, this would hurt the city, and we could do other things with that area where taxpayers could get a vote. But it kind of also shows you how quick the Rams were rushed from LA to St. Louis. How they basically just signed something and whatever it said. They said, get him here, get him here. Everybody did. Not only did the St. Louis do it with the CVC, but now you see that the politicians did it, putting ordinances that can't even be enforced. Like that you don't hear that from a judge too often. I can't enforce this ordinance because it's too vague. It's guesswork. They're basically the politicians and the lawyers for the politicians put a bunch of mumbo and jumbo together and said this, that, and the other, and let's get them here. Never thinking that a guy like Stan Kroenke would get it and basically make them try to have to enforce this kind of stuff because they were late to the ball. You can obviously tell that our city leaders didn't really care about your tax dollars when we didn't have football. But when we do have football now, all of a sudden, now they care where the tax dollars go. Because if they cared what your tax dollars did, then they would have wrote it up to where now, less than 25 years later, that could be enforced. I mean, there's not really laws that change that much over time. Our Constitution has been around forever. It doesn't change all the time. It doesn't change every 25 years for sure. I mean, most of the laws that are changing now for 25 years ago are gay marriage and all that. But now the football's here. Now they don't want you to spend money on the football. Now they say that the taxpayers should get the vote. The taxpayers should get to vote for what their tax dollars do. Well, now you can inform your city leader that they messed up, or your county leader, or whatever. And now I don't get the vote anyways. But I don't understand why people wouldn't want their money to go towards something that's going to benefit everybody. If you build something up, there kind of is shown that St. Louis is going to protect it. You never heard about too many things going on down at the Jones, down at Scottrade, down at Busch Stadium. Even the car robberies and stuff on the side streets where people are parking and stuff. But there's not big stuff going on. So, just think if you built that whole area up and kind of connected it with the arch grounds and stuff going on, other things that are going on with building up the arch grounds, just think how much that would enhance that area of nothing. It's absolutely nothing. It's a bunch of abandoned buildings, a few little businesses here and there, and streets and rubble and rock and refrigerators and all that. But that's one big hurdle because that San Diego's not even talking about getting a vote to January. And that's when the NFL owners are talking about voting on this. That there probably won't be a vote till January. So if we would have been in the same boat just now, knowing if we were going to vote, even though we've already put our readies out, we've already spent our money on the NFL environment studies where they said they could get over 200 million. A seat license, we're only saying that we need 160. We are farther than the city of San Diego, but not that much farther if we need a public vote. Because then you have to set up this vote. You have to set up I think what they call a special election or something like that. A special vote, which takes time. And definitely in this slow-moving cities, it took them 7 years after being told you need to look at this. You need to look at this now. By Dan Deerdorf. How long this would have took forever. I mean, even though Stan Kroenke's attempt from what we've seen has been that he's going to LA, what can he do if Spanos is already there with Mark Davis? Because Spanos is acting like he doesn't like Stan Kroenke at all, or Stan Kroenke doing this at all. But money's money, and billionaires want to be quadruple billionaires. They want more money. And the best way for them to get more money is put two of the most powerful owners in their league, an owner of Goldman Sachs, a guy that runs his own investment company and has a lot to do with Walmart, and put them together at a stadium that's already planned to develop a grounds, and you know he was going to throw a Walmart out there if he gets that stadium anywhere. It's just going to happen. Here, family, here's a Walmart. Here's space for a Walmart. Build it out. You know, it was bound to happen if it happens. But you haven't heard nothing about Oakland. Oakland don't even care about the Raiders. Leave. We're not doing nothing. We ain't doing nothing for the A's either. We're going to have this crappy sewer-ridden stadium. What are you going to do about it? Which is kind of the approach Stan Kroenke's took toward us. I own the team. I got $4 billion. I'm going to build this stadium in L.A. What are you going to do about it? But you got to be glad you got a guy like Dave Peacock. Bob Blitz was part of what I just read in that judge's ruling for Thomas Frawley. He was one of the lawyers trying to stop the public vote. So you got guys that are fighting hard, even though they're getting their money. Already $5 million paid out for just them people. They're at least still fighting. I mean, it is a little scary that Stan Kroenke and the Rams are at these owners' meetings making their little pitch, but you're glad to see a guy like Carl Palisi, who you know well respected in the league, running teams like the 49ers for so long, and has been in the NFL for so long, that you know he's respected, and he's the guy making the pitch for the San Diego Chargers. And it's also been said that Dean Spanos has the backing of most of the owners in the NFL. And this is only a two-team plan, which you've heard plenty of times, that they want a two-team plan, that there's going to be two teams out there one way or another. Right now, it's more of finding them a place to play than it is that they're not going there. It's more of figuring out where they're going to play in LA. But finally, something on the good news side, where we don't have the city and the Dome Authority suing each other, and these ratheads from SLU who still said, these guys from SLU that said they're still going to try for the suits to stop the public funding going without a vote. John Allman of St. Louis U. But it's a big hurdle to jump over something that was going to have to be planned, and now you don't have to worry about it. Now we're skipping over it, and we got to figure out what's next and how we're going to making sure we have the financing. Even though we've said plenty of times it's very easy, we've drawn it out, but there's still a chance that we don't have it all. So hopefully they're just working on that kind of stuff, and that current policy just wows everybody and shit. And it's not really in Chicago, but it's in Illinois, but they call it Chicago. But yeah, you're hoping Congress policy go out there and just wows everybody and proves that the Chargers are the best fit with the Raiders to go to Los Angeles. Well, if you didn't hear on Friday, the Rams signed a 2-year extension with Nick Foles shortly before the start of practice. Foles will be under contract through the 2017 season, which means he'll make $1.52 next year. Then for the 2 years after that, it'll add up to $24.5. $14 million of that contract is guaranteed, but the 2017 contract is voided if Foles goes to the Pro Bowl or it's based on team victories. So it tells you if he sucked, he can opt out. That's all it basically says. But you got out if you were the worst quarterback in the league at that time. That might be the situation that we'll never know about until, obviously, after the 2016 season. But you have to put your faith in somebody. And this sounds like, even though Fisher kept calling it a long-term contract, like one of them contracts where if you find somebody in the draft that you really like, that Nick Foles might have to fight for a spot in the 2016 season. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. It sounds like that the Rams, either in the 2016 draft or the 2017 draft, see somebody that they like or might like, and this is kind of just one of the things that benefits the player and the coach and the team. Because then if you go and get that quarterback and Foles doesn't play that well, you start that guy, Foles can get out and try to get a new job. And with only signing the 2 years, not really putting a long-term thing on it, when you get your guy, you could go and get your guy without him being stuck in the way of somebody else. Which might have been their situation with Sam Bradford. Maybe they thought that if they brought another guy in, he would just be stuck behind Sam because of all the money that Bradford made. And maybe that's why they got rid of him. To get a guy like Nick Foles that makes a lot less money and had an expiring contract after this season, and then put him to something where you could go actually and get a quarterback to your liking. So it's a nice little short and sweet deal. Benefits both teams. Basically, he could make $14 million in one season, which is Bradford type money, but making the 1.52, that's only $8 million, less than $8 million in 2 seasons. You can't be mad at that the Rams didn't put themselves at a financial risk like they have with other contracts. Cortland Finnegan, just to name one, 5 years, 50. Jared Cook so far. Jake Long. You've hampered yourself in certain situations where you couldn't go get anybody else. Definitely with Sam Bradford. Now you're basically putting it something at a just over $7.5 million a year. And that leaves you $7.5 million that you didn't have before when you had Sam Bradford. So it's a nice and little deal. Keeps your quarterback happy. Puts a team in a place where they can either ride Nick Foles out, see what he can do, give him a long-term contract, or get a guy that they really like. So you got to be happy that the Rams did something like this to kind of maybe give us a thought in mind that we got a little bit of stability at quarterback, but also not kill themselves and restrain themselves with offering overput players at work. Now, if you may heard, 2 Mizzou players were arrested recently. Alden Smith was arrested for the 5th time, his 3rd DUI. He was arrested on suspicion of DUI after a hit and run and vandalism. He was released subsequently by the 49ers the next day. So he's not released, free agent, a guy that you would love to have on your team, but you're kind of scared to have him on your team because you don't know what he would do. Because the guy's had threats at airports, and now something like this where he hit a parked car as he's back into a complex in Santa Clara. Then he opened his door to his FCV, then hit the car again. Smith, talked to the owner and left. The owner did call police, where Smith then returned 90 minutes later to the scene of the accident, where cops issued a field sobriety test. Cops say he did not complete it satisfactory, which means that he probably wasn't given a rat's ass about some sobriety test. He probably didn't think he was drunk or anything like that. Probably, yeah, whatever. And so they arrested him and placed him in jail. He is on probation from his arrest when he was put on probation. The judge started him for jail for his next offense. And the story's even crazier because he came out to the media before he was released and said this wasn't a DUI. The facts will come out. So he's already disputing the cops' claim of it and saying it wasn't a DUI. And you know how kind of these things happen. It's like, oh, I'm Alden Smith, blah, blah, blah. Nice to meet you. Sorry I did this. Sorry I did that. Bye. You know, basically, here's an autograph, something, bye. Maybe he didn't even do that. Maybe he just said, I'm Alden Smith. I'm sorry, man, blah, 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 bye. So I got calls the cops, of course, to try to get something out of it. To get his money for his car, which he has all right to do. And then, of course, all the not expected to show back up is probably going to show up in a bad mood that he's even dealing with this situation, even though he put himself there. But that's not the real reason. Alden's in trouble for even coming back to the NFL. But there's maybe something that's gone off that someone hasn't figured out since he's gotten there. But we'll get further into that as we go on. Sheldon Richardson, former Mizzou defensive end, was charged with resisting arrest and various other traffic offenses as he was clocked by a Fallon TD going 143 miles per hour. His other charges were exceeding the speed limit, following too closely, failure to use light signal, failure to obey the signals. Cops said they caught Richardson late night road racing on Highway 40. Cops said he drove around stopped vehicles and turned his lights off. Officers caught Richardson in a driveway in the Wing-Hanging subdivision. Richardson and his 2 adult passengers were ordered out at gunpoint because it looked as if Richardson was reaching for something when he was in the car. There was also a 12-year-old in the car. Cops searched the car and found an semi-automatic handgun, which was legally owned by Richardson. They also smelled a small odor of marijuana, which is bad for him because he's on suspension from the NFL for marijuana, but did not find nothing for a charge. They also thought about charging him for the child endangerment because he had a 12-year-old in the car, but didn't think the charges would stick. Richardson told media at Jets camp this will not happen again. I am not a dope fiend, when they asked him about the weed situation. Now, I'm not going to rant and rave. People mess up. People that keep messing up with millions of dollars are stupid. No ifs, ands, anything about it. Stupid. Not smart. Very... It doesn't make any sense to me. But the problem is people are going back and blaming this on Gary Pickle in college. They're college coaches. They said Gary Pickle should help these guys out. Gary Pickle should have known. This could have stopped at college before they got to the NFL. The problem is nothing like this happened before when they were in college. The only thing that Gary Pickle even mentioned was that we've had some academic troubles. We had some academic troubles with Sheldon. So your first thought should be, this probably happened because they have millions and millions of dollars now. Now they can think they can do whatever they want. Now they didn't have a Bentley. They had some Ford Pinto or GMC Metro, and I'm going way old school, but a Ford Escort. They didn't have Bentleys and stuff like this in drive. Lawton Smith probably didn't grow up with driving around a big SUV before he went to college. He probably didn't have the money to go out and get drunk and get high. Neither one of them probably did when they were going into college. That's probably what happens to every billionaire at some point, to where you get to a point to where, man, I can do whatever I want almost. I want to show my homies how fast this Bentley goes. I want to smoke weed even though I'm getting drug tested. I think it'll be out of my system by then. I think I go get drunk and drive, which seems to happen to every NFL player, even though NFL has a system set in to where guys can get calls to get picked up. Yeah, you hear about drunk driving from NFL players all the time. But if you're going to blame someone, blame Gary Pickle, go back to the Sasha Menu Corey stuff. Go back to the people that are getting busted for weed that were in college. Don't get over something that has nothing to do with him, with things that are happening in the NFL, with things that already happened that the Jets should have seen, with things that have happened with the 49ers should have seen. Maybe start looking at that. Maybe the month in rehab or however long Alden Smith was in rehab wasn't enough. Maybe you had to go a little deeper than that. But to go back and blame something like that on our college coach when they did nothing in college to exhibit any thing that they were going to go out and be the guy that's out there smoking the weed. Guy going out there and driving his Bentley 143. No, Sheldon Richardson was the guy that got in trouble with his grades. He said he didn't have no trouble with all of it. Blame it on Jim Harbaugh. Blame it on Rex Ryan. Blame it on guys that have been in their lives over the last few years that blame the guy that was in their life before when they didn't do nothing to the guy before. Because they went there to get rich, obviously. They thought they had great football skills, and they probably worked their tails off to make sure they were one of the best players in the league. But now they got there. Now they got their money. So now it's, hey, I can do whatever I want. But to go back and blame that on the college coaches is ridiculous. And something that doesn't even make sense to me at all. Alright, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back. This is the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network. Hello and welcome back to the Sports Blog of the Greater STL Sports Network. Robert Bowlesby here with you. You can tweet me at rbowlesbyjr. You can tweet the Greater STL Sports Network at Greater STLSN. You can also find us on Facebook at the Greater STL One Word Sports Network. YouTube, same thing. And we also got a Ustream page now, so our shows will be live. We'll post them on the Twitter and the Facebook. And just go to ustream.tv to watch. Click on search R Bowlesby JR, my Twitter handle, and we'll get it somewhere to where it works in with the Greater STLS network. And you can watch live. You can also watch the videos live at any time, just like you can listen to the audio live anytime on YouTube. And this show will also be up on YouTube. We'll get to the hometown rundown, and you kind of feel bad for St. Louis FC. If they kept these games close, they've scored equalizing goals, and then as soon as something bad happens, it just goes crazy. The last two games, the New York Red Bulls, and I can't remember the team before that, last week, but after a hard-fought tie, they got down 0-1, came back, tied the game, and then they came back the next game against the Red Bulls and tied the game. And then it all broke loose 4-1. Then last week tying the game again, and then it all broke loose 3-0 or 3-1. And now you're losing points at home that you really have to get to make it to the playoffs. And going against some of these teams, you got to kind of feel bad. Like, you know that the Red Bulls 2 are getting funded heavily by the New York Red Bulls. They're wanting to bring in the best players, so when their guys get injured or they transfer their guys overseas to make the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, that they have somebody to come up there and back him up. And you really only have a couple of Chicago Fire guys on this roster. Your goalie and Kingsley Bryce. They took Patrick Doody up. You haven't really seen a whole much of him. So you got a lot of amateur soccer players just trying to make it. And that's part of the problem it's been for FC at times. You can tell some of these guys haven't played these long seasons. They're getting worn out in these second halves. And then you get the long bombs in soccer where it's heavily hard to get behind the defense, but somehow it happens to FC. You get a lot of guys going after the ball at the same time, because they have their head down, and they got their hands on their knees, and they're just running after the ball to try to stop the ball, and you get wide open shots from right in front of your goal. So you kind of feel bad for St. Louis FC, but sometimes you gotta suck it up. And they've been pretty good at switching in and out of players and doing a lot of substitutions. But you can tell that some of these players are wearing out for the long season. And you've still got a lot of injuries to a lot of your good players. And you even have some going out there and playing with injuries, like Jameel Hardware, who had a cast in his hand for I don't know how long. So hopefully they can turn it around next week and get a win, get 3 points there in the USL. Alright, let's go to weird news. It's in Bradbury, New Jersey. Authorities say a man planning a burglary inadvertently dialed 911, allowing dispatchers to listen on his conversations. Somerset County prosecutors say Barq police received an errant call on July 27th, but were unsure of the caller's location. They learned the phone's numbers of the phone and had recently been assigned to 42-year-old Scott Escher of Elizabeth. Escher was arrested Wednesday after he allegedly entered a Stanford Township home. He is now charged with that burglary and others in Bradbury and Berkeley Heights. Authorities say that the Branchburg robbery occurred the same days as the very phone call was made. And I just don't know how. I mean, I don't think the only thing on your screen is that emergency call thing on a lot of phones. I mean, now you even got an old Android phone. It's usually what I use on my backup for the sports blog. I mean, and that's one of the first things there is you can only get them to an emergency call when your phone gets locked up. But I mean, I've had it in my pocket and I've heard it beeping. My phone beep, and you're dialing a number. You're like, what the heck? And you see you're on an emergency call. You go out and clear it out. I just don't understand how did you dial that number for some odd reason before? Did you call 911? I just don't understand how your phone rolls around and hits 9 at the very bottom to the right, and then somehow gets to 1 twice up to the top left. And maybe some phones are set just to call 911 when you press emergency call. But I just can't think of them calling it any other way than they already have it in their phone for some odd reason. I mean, I don't have 911 in my phone, so I feel like you had to call it before for some reason just to have it. And I've had stories like this already. So this ain't the first time. But it just surprises me that it happens. Alright, we're going to move to Maryland as a third mile Maryland. An active military grade hand grenade was uncovered Saturday in a parking lot outside of McDonald's in Maryland. A bomb tech with the office of the state marshal secured and removed the active grenade. The bomb tech, Dale Enoch, said the grenade was found lodged a foot under the pavement and was there for quite some time. Enoch said it was likely from the military base in Thurman, about 50 miles away from Baltimore. Probably landed there several decades ago. He also said if the grenade had gone off, and anyone in the vicinity could have severe injuries or death. And the bomb was actually found by some landscapers. So I think they would have hit that with their blade or something. That's a foot underground. But you do some things like that when you're doing landscaping. My construction job, I've done a lot of digging flowers. And you also dig in front of the mulch beds to kind of give it an edge. So the mulch doesn't flow up into the grass. And though you only go down a few inches for that, that's still a little scary. And if it would have gone off, it could have hurt people in, I guess, the immediate vicinity. It didn't say. But who gets sued for that? The military? Baltimore? The guys that set it off, or because it's in the McDonald's parking lot? So, yeah, I don't understand how that would all work. Right, I kind of want to cover this GOP thing, and I don't want to cover most of it. I just kind of like a couple comments that everybody's favorite Democrat made but Donald Trump said some pretty good teams to me. Donald Trump said when about immigration, we need to build a mall. I don't mind if we have a big beautiful door in that wall. If Iran was a stock, you folks should go buy it right now. I'll tell you what, if Hillary Clinton came to my wedding, I tell you what, with Hillary Clinton I said be at my wedding, and she came to my wedding. You know why? She had no choice. And then after being asked in a comment by a reporter, Megyn Kelly, about degrading women, he dismissed it, and then in an interview later with CNN, so she had blood coming out of her eyes. That she was going after her. She had blood coming out of her eyes. She also had blood coming out of something else. Which he then went on with everybody's favorite website to voice your opinions on Twitter. And said it could have been coming out of anywhere, like her nose. And then bash people for political correctness. But it's easy for a smart guy just to say coming out of her eyes. You can see blood coming out of her nose. Anywhere. It makes you sound like because you degraded women before, you're saying that she was ragging. And you can't do that to a girl. Donald? You know what's going to happen. Now you're going to get every girl in the nation going after you for downgrading women again. Because you couldn't just say it's coming out of her nose. You couldn't have left it was coming out of her eyes and say she was going after me. No, he had to make some big statement so everybody could talk about it, and he said the wrong thing. Now, my favorite part of the night was Mike Huckabee had a rap that against Social Security and metaphor saying that pimps, prostitutes, illegal immigrants, drug dealers are all freeloaders of the system and need to pay taxes. Wow. Who's going to find these pimps? I mean, the prostitutes aren't that hard. The legal immigrants aren't that hard. Drug dealers get taken down every day. So what you're saying is if a drug dealer gets arrested for not paying his taxes, all you got to do is pay his taxes. He just estimates his worth. He just does a W-2. You send a W-2 to the drug dealer, he fills it out. You send it to the pimp. You go find a legal immigrant in some house that some white guy's keeping him in so he can be on his grass crew, which did happen in Bridgeton. It's not. I was joking there, but that is true. Or I wouldn't have said it. You go find them and send them their bill. This is how much we think you made. This is how much you owe in taxes. It doesn't. He's been in this before. He had a show. I think it was either on Fox News or the other one, NBC, SN, or whatever. How are you going to find these people? What are you going to... when you take their money, you're going to take them and say, here's your taxes, give it back. Why don't you just have the cops give all the money they seized to give it back? Pay it in the taxes. Pay it in the Medicaid, Social Security. You have to... I mean, that's... As soon as I heard that, that's the first thing I thought. Well, when they take their money from the drug dealers, put it in the Medicaid, Social Security, and don't let the cops go out and buy new cars so they can go roll around in and buy all their hotel rooms and stuff to get these drug dealers. Or leave them only some to say this is what you need. This is what we're taking, this is what you need. I mean, to sit here and say that if I was a drug dealer that I would sell a 20 sack or something to somebody, take that 20 and say, I gotta go get change for the gas station, I gotta pay my taxes out of this. How would you reform that? How would you even... would they have a special kiosk to go to? This is how you pay your taxes? I mean, you wouldn't know the individuals. You wouldn't know every individual was doing it unless you went and found every other individual and gave them... I mean, you'd have to give them a W-2. Or I think it's a 1099 where they have to fill out their own taxes and stuff like that. And then go pay them. So just great Republican leaders there at the little debate they had, and I hope the Democrat one is just as good. And I kind of wanted to get... how am I going to end this? I ended with some football talk. Ronda Rousey's fight with the Cyborg, saying that she was signed to fight Ronda Rousey in December. And it's also said if Ronda Rousey is busy at that time, that she's got an open date in April. Now this is with her having to cut down 20 pounds almost, even though they say she's easily gotten down to 145 and she'll easily get down to 135, because Ronda has fought higher before, and that's kind of what they were wanting her to do. But the problem is, there was just a suit played on Ronda Rousey for saying she was defaming the Cyborg for saying that she was on steroids, which she was caught before using some kind of substance, and then has passed every test since. And it's even said with this fight that she wants Olympic-style drug testing to go on. But if you're around it, do you accept the fight? I think you automatically accept the fight just for the hype and the money you're going to make. But if you think the steroid thing is true, or do you, even if she can't get down to the weight, do you take her to catch weight just for the fight? I don't think they really do it too much that UFC, but they do that. When people kind of weigh over, they kind of just have the fight anyways. Just like they do in boxing. Just like they do in basically every fighting sport. But when you're saying all these things about her, that she's placing a suit on you for it, and then you know that she's one of the baddest girls out there fighting right now, because you're going at Miesha Tate for your third time, which have been two pretty easy fights for you before. So, is she really in a catch-22 here? Well, what she has to do is, if she doesn't accept the fight, does she look like that she's kind of backing out, checking it out? And if she does, is she accepting a fight that she could lose? And you kind of want to do that, definitely with where she's at in her fame. It started right out, going out and doing the movies and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that. Now, another UFC is, I wonder if the power of Twitter got this fight, because I follow I follow Tyler Woodley on Twitter, and now he's going to fight former champion Johnny Hendricks. And for the last month or so, people have been going crazy, texting the UFC, or tweeting the UFC, hashtagging it, tweeting Dana White to get this fight going, and I wonder if that worked in Tyron Woodley's favor. I don't know if he deserves this fight. I'm not saying he's not a bad fighter, but do you deserve a guy that's in the hunt for the championship? Because most likely, if Hendricks wins this fight, he's going to get a title shot. Does Woodley get the title shot if he wins the fight? And maybe he does. Maybe he's at that point. I just didn't think he was. So, I wonder if, like, Dana White got tired of seeing it on Twitter. Every time he looked at Twitter, his notification said Tyron Woodley 10 bazillion times. And like, sometimes I've looked at my Twitter and seen just a bunch of random and been like, oh my. So, I can understand where he's at that point, and I don't know if it happened, because I wasn't told it happened. Dana White didn't come out and say it happened, but I wonder if the power of Twitter got that fight to happen for Tyron Woodley. And maybe Hendricks' camp thought it was a good fight. I don't exactly know all the details. It's just funny that I've seen it for the last month, and now all of a sudden it's happening. And that's a fight between Hendricks and Tyron Woodley. Now, this NFL Hall of Fame happened over the weekend, and inducted were Jerome Business, Tim Brown, Charles Haley, Bill Polian, Will Shields, Mick Tingelhoff, Ron Wolf, and Junior Seau. First NFL messed up in that situation and didn't let his daughter come speak at the camp, but did let her do a video tribute before it. But I'm not going to get on that. You don't want to get hurt in the situation. And it might have been over the concussion suit and all that, and blah, blah, blah. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where she can go out there and she can say this about the NFL, about this suit. That you're going to want probably a video recorded already. Or if you're live, where you can shut it off anytime you're live, because if she's out there on stage, she's going to be out there on camera. And you're going to be like, But it is kind of messed up. They let her do it. I'm not saying that she would do it. I'm just saying that you got to see a league like that that's trying to keep its self-image going at all time will be worried about that. Where I'm going to get myself in trouble at is there's 3 Hall of Famers from the greater... 3 potential Hall of Famers left from the greatest show on turf. And I kind of only think one of them's getting in. And that's Isaac Bruce. The other 2 that would be left would be Torrey Holt and Kurt Warner. And I think with Tim Brown getting in, I think that's going to start being a little bit of a breakthrough. Andre Reed getting in year before that. But there's still going to be a lot of I think there's going to start being a little breakthrough for receivers. Which means that a guy like Isaac Bruce very easily, and I'm pretty sure he's going to get into the Hall of Fame within the next couple years. But I don't think Kurt Warner had the success over the amount of time that a lot of Hall of Famers had. And I know you look at some Hall of Famers like Namath and Bradshaw, and they're in there basically for the Super Bowls. And WAR stats kills them, but he only did it for 6 seasons. So you had a 3 with the Rams, and then a 3. Then you had some seasons in between with the Giants and the Cardinals, and then now he's the Cardinals for the 3 years run that they were on. And I'm not saying that I don't think he's Hall of Fame worthy. I'm just saying I don't think with all the stuff that they look at that he's going to be Hall of Fame deserving to the Riders. And then Torrey Holt, he just doesn't have stats to add up to some of these guys like Tim Brown and Isaac Bruce and players like that, even though he accomplished a lot. His stats just don't pack up to players that aren't in as of now. And then you got some players coming up. So I don't maybe think necessarily that they're not going to get it. And I think it's going to take a lot longer than Ram fans want. Except for everybody but Isaac Bruce. I think it's going to take a lot of people like talking about it. You're going to have to hope a guy like Bernie Miklasz, a guy like Howard Balls will go out there and do all the talking and stuff that we needed. What they did for Aeneas Williams, we needed them to do for Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt. Because that's the only way they're going to get in, is with guys on their side. So you're kind of hoping that a guy like Birdie is still around to do that kind of stuff when it comes to it for the times for the Hall of Fame for them 2 guys. Now this deflate thing, Gabe thing, is just getting funnier and funnier. Like I see before that it was going to go Tom Brady's way, and then Roger Goodell kind of figured that out. And then it seemed like the Roger Goodell just was taking it over, had control of everything. But now it seems that there's been findings in the rule book that only dictates it to be a 4-game, or a fine, excuse me. I think the fine was $25,000. And Antonio Cromartie, who's not going to be on the Patriots side about anything, guys talked a lot about the Patriots, said that Roger Goodell is wrong. And you have players that are telling you that you're wrong as the commissioner because it's found in the rule book that you went over your head. He also said it's also bad for him to be the judge, jury, and disciplinarian, which is crazy. But this is how the CBA wrote. This is what they agreed to. You had your reps who should have told you about these situations, but obviously weren't good enough reps to tell you about it. So you really can't complain about the judge, jury, and executioner thing, but you can complain about something that's in the rule book that is a 4-game suspension now, but only in the rule book only awards a fine. And this is where that Roger Goodell might have to start shutting down some of his power himself, where he's now starting to look like maybe he's in over his head, and now he might have to stop it for a little bit, and then maybe in a year or 2 take the reins back over. Because now you got players going after you because now you're going against the rule book that's bargaining in with the CBA. They can't bargain. They complain about it, but there's nothing to complain about with the judge, jury, and executioner thing. But this is something to complain about, that if he's going to go against Tom Brady in the rules, what is he going to do to you? Alright, that's going to do it. We'll see you next time, right here on the Sports Blog on the Greater STL Sports Network.